Today's lesson is going to look at combining tenths and hundredths. How many hundredths are shaded? How many tenths are shaded? So when we look at something like this, you see that like in the previous video that I made, each one of these columns here has 10. And the same goes with like in this direction too. So when you have the hundredths are just the little guys here. I'm not going to highlight them all, but there's 100 in here because it's 10 here and 10 here. So 10 times 10 is 100. So how many hundredths are shaded? Well, if you were to count all these hundredths right here, you will see that there are 30 hundredths shaded. And how many tenths are shaded? That would be these guys over here. And you would see that there are 3 tenths shaded. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide. How many hundredths are shaded now? Well, we know each one of these is 10. So we have 10, 20, 30, and there's 2 there. So 32 hundredths are shaded. And to write this as a fraction, it would be 32 over 100. So let's do some activities here. Describe the fractions shaded as hundredths and as tenths and hundredths. So I'll explain what this means shortly. So let's do hundredths first for the first one here. So we know that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them here. 6 tenths, which is 60 hundredths. So 6 tenths. And then there would be 4 hundredths. Combined, it's 64 hundredths. I spelled it wrong there, but who cares? Nobody cares about that. B, let's look at how many are shaded. Well, let's see how many tenths there are. 1, 2, 3, 4 tenths. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hundredths. Combined, you have 47 hundredths. Okay, time to look at C. Well, C is going in a different direction, so we're going to have to go, instead of going vertically, we'll have to go horizontally. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They are 8 tenths. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hundredths. For a combined total of 85 hundredths. Okay. And on D, D's looking a little weird, so let's go through this. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 tenths again. And how many hundredths do we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 hundredths. Which gives us a total of 86 hundredths. Okay, let's go to the right here. At this point, if you're watching this in class, there's a place value chart that I asked you to do last time. So I'm just going to redo the place value chart here. There's a better version available in the other slideshow from March 26th. So you have here, there we go. So ones, if you recall, ones was written over here, tens, hundreds, and then we went thousands. Okay, and the decimal belongs here. The first column, the first section after ones is called tenths. Then we go hundredths, and then thousandths. Okay, and like I mentioned in the previous video, tenths means out of 10, hundredths means out of 100, thousandths means out of 1,000. So having this chart written down will help you. So if you need to pause the video or go back to the other slideshow, please do that right now. Some examples here, or some more explanations. Just like there's a ones place and a tens place in whole numbers. There's tenths and hundredths in decimals. So this is what we have been working on the last 2 days. The first digit to the right of the decimal point is the number of tenths. And the second digit is the number of hundredths. So if we're going to make up a number here, let's just use 75. There are 7 tenths, 5 hundredths, for a grand total of, for a grand total of 75 hundredths. You can read this as 0.75. It's all the same thing. Remember, there is no such thing as a oneths column. Okay, so do not forget that, please. Thank you. Next, describe the hundredths using the 3 ways shown. So let's go through all of these. So 54 hundredths. First way is by fraction, 54 over 100. The next one is decimal, 0.54. And the last one, they want you to use words. So 5 tenths, 4 hundredths. Okay, same pattern applies here. We have 8 hundredths, so 8 over 100. The decimal for this is really, it can be tricky. Common mistake is people are going to tell me it's 0.8. It's actually 0.08. If you're not sure what to do here, you go 8 divided by 100 on your calculator, and you get your answer. And in words, this is just simply 8 hundredths, just like it is written in the question. Same thing. 37 hundredths, so you have 37 over 100, which is equal to 0.37. Again, if you do 37, divide by 100, numerator by denominator, you get this answer here. And the words would be 3 tenths, 7 hundredths. Okay, next slide. So label the tenths. So the tenths are all right here. These are the tenths. So very similar to a normal ruler. This is the same. It's literally the same idea. Mark 0.43 on the number line. So you have to look for the 4, which is right over here. So 43 would be right here. 0.43. Okay. Write the fraction of the distance from 0 to 1 as hundredths and tenths and hundredths. So let's look at A. This is right before 1/10. So right before 1/10, you have 0 tenths. And if you count these little guys here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 hundredths. Okay, and this would be 9 over 100. I know it doesn't say to do this, but I'm going to do it anyways because you're going to have to do it anyways too. So this is for A. For B, you have, because it's in between 2 and 3, so it's not quite at 3, you know right away it's 2 tenths. And how many hundredths? Well, if you count forwards or you can count backwards, it's really up to you. I prefer to go backwards because I know this is 9 and that's 8. So you have 8 hundredths. Again, I made a spelling mistake. Who cares? Which would be 28 over 100. 0.28. So that's for B. And for C, we see that it is between 5 and 6 tenths. So we have 5 tenths. And there's 2 hundredths. And that would be 52 over 100, which is 0.52. And lastly, D, I'm just going to do it up here. This is just 7 tenths. And there's 0 hundredths. This can be written as 7 over 10 or 70 over 100. It's the same thing, and it also gives you the same decimal. Okay. Next slide. I want to know where to place 0.61. How many tenths are in 61 hundredths? Well, the clue is right here. it's the first number. There are 6. So it has to be between these two numbers here, 0.6 and 0.7. Is 0.61 closer to 6/10 or 7/10? Well, it is closer to 6/10. That's where 0.61 would be. So let's label it. There you go. Estimate the location of 0.48. Well, the 4 tells us it needs to be between the 4 and the 5. And 8 is really close to 5, so we can label it right around here. Okay, and now 0.95 is between 0.9 and 1. So, and the 5 tells us it's right in the middle, so 0.95 would go there. So if you are in class right now, you're going to get a sheet to work on some activity. I'm going to move along for the people watching later. How many centimeters are in 1 meter? Well, we know that there's 100 centimeters. And I know this is the previous unit, but it is related. What fraction of a meter is a centimeter? So 1 centimeter equals 0.01 meters, which would equal to 1 over 100. 5 centimeters would be 0.05 meters, which would equal to 5 over 100. And 17 centimeters would be 0.17 meters, which would be 17 over 100. So you have been doing fractions for a long time. You just probably didn't realize it. And our final slide is to write this as a decimal. I'm going to do the decimal and the fraction just so you are familiar with it, and more exposure means more familiarity. 37 meters is 0.37. This is also written as 37 over 100. 4 centimeters is 4 over 100. And in decimals, if you did 4 divided by 100, you'll see that you get 0.04. For 90 centimeters, 90 over 100. And if you were to do 90 divided by 100, you're going to get 0.9 meters. And in the last video I mentioned you can write it as 0.9 or 0.90, but you do not have to include this 0. It's not really necessary. 16 centimeters would be 16 over 100. 16 divided by 100, 0.16 meters. So this is the last slide. So if you are in my class right now, your homework questions are posted in Google Classroom and they've been emailed to you. If you're not in my classroom, I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.